Hello, and welcome to another Flow Academy Talks edition. I have the great honor of welcoming Professor David Attard, who I've had the great pleasure of having many conversations with over the past 3 months. I find what he does extremely interesting, and I'm looking forward to having a good chat with him in this particular case about shaping change, and mostly when we talk about leadership. David, welcome.
Thank you for bringing me on this program.
It is an absolute pleasure. I want to start with one question because, in my opinion, over the course of the past few months, I've got the opinion that you are addicted to learning. What's your comments?
Yes, I think that's a fair
Assessment?
proposal and assessment on my case. I believe in lifelong learning, and I believe that it is lifelong learning which makes leaders leaders.
Yeah.
And bringing this into what you would like to bring up today, I think it's very valid to state that without learning, people cannot progress and get better into anything they do in life.
I don't think you could have explained it any better, to be honest. Can you tell us about the core purpose of your work, David, and your leadership role too, please?
Okay. It goes back to my choice of what I wanted to do back in life. I'm now going on to 65. Young.
You don't look a day older than 55, right?
Yes, I know. In fact, I get a lot of compliments on that, especially. No, the thing is, since I was quite young, I got addicted, to use the word you actually told me. I got addicted to books because one of the first outings I had on my own when I was young at school was to go to the public library. And in those days, back in the 60s, I'm saying, 1960s, we didn't have any internet, we didn't have any digital life things going around with us, so we had physical books. And I found a particular book at that time, which was like, Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh, yeah, of course, I remember those.
And I was like astounded at the immense continuity, like a river of knowledge coming to us.
You didn't read all the volumes, did you?
No, I didn't. But I think it was what brought me to where I am today, because from those days, I remember that I was hooked. Not to use the same word as addicted, because it's perhaps more
Good
positive.
Choice. Good choice.
I was hooked on learning. And when I say learning, it's not just book learning. So I continued to study. And not only that, I love helping students learn. So you asked me what brings me here and what... This is it. I love learning, I love teaching, and I love to continue learning, because when we have students, when we do these things, when we explore subjects, when we explore life, we understand how little we know and how much more there is to know.
Very, very good. In terms of your background with especially teaching in leadership and management, give us a bit of a rundown of how that sort of developed in your life.
Okay. Well, again, it developed in very strange ways, because this is not a straight path. Many people think that careers are straight paths. I think there is a term which I like to use, cybernetics. It's a study of how things move towards their goal. It comes from a Greek word, cyber. So when I was young, I got to know this word through a book. And it was a book which led me to say, wow, there is so much you can do with this. And my first degree was education. And from that period of time, when I was at first degree I was reading for was education at University of Malta. And I met some young men, young women who were interested in management. And at that time, we didn't have MBAs. In Malta in the 70s, and there were still
Different time
different
altogether.
times.
Yeah, of course.
So I was reading books like Apple, and at the time it was Macintosh and whatever. I said, well, most of these people have MBAs. So one of my goals was, I want to get an MBA. So this was back in the 70s. So at that time it was quite.
And this was your second degree, correct?
Yes, it was not actually my second one, my third one, because that came in the 80s.
Okay.
And however, what's funny about it is I wanted to become a psychologist, and I started training as a psychotherapist. And many people coming for understanding psychology and therapy were from business and management.
Very true, yeah.
They were in companies, they were in organizations. And one of my teachers, mentors, was a Jesuit priest, Father Alfred Darmanin, who wrote books on leadership. And he took me under his wing while I was at university. And that was a seed in a very fertile field. Not my mind, but the situation, the age, the circumstances that Malta was in those days. And Father Darmanin, God bless his soul because he passed away, was one of my first prompters to go into a management and leadership training.
Okay.
To take it myself and to give it.
Very nice, very nice. So let's go on to talking about shaping change. Okay.
Shaping change, yes.
One of the most, I think, if I have to give my opinion on the situation, right now we are at probably the most difficult period when it comes to leadership and management. And that is because the mechanisms of companies, it's constantly changing. Yeah. Not just here and there, it is almost on a daily basis. So when you talk about shaping change, how do you define compelling vision, for example?
Compelling vision, yes, because these are all words which bring a lot of repercussions, good ones, especially to people who want to develop something. Now, your question is so good because to answer that, one has to understand what makes human beings.
That's a difficult question.
What makes human beings move in life? What makes human beings react and work through change? So, human beings are made, because I cannot say created, but some people say they're created, some people say they evolved.
That's an argument for another episode, perhaps.
But the idea is human beings have a particular something which is different from other animals. Some animals, like apes, give this same pattern, but to a lower degree, like chimps. And there's tools, making tools. And from the history of man, human beings have shown that making fire, making weapons, to hunt, etc., to defend themselves, it's a tool-making brain that humans have.
Yeah, this is all about the ability to adapt, correct?
The ability to adapt, the ability to meet the circumstances in the environment. Some environments, as we know, are different where human beings are accustomed to. But since evolutionary times, way back, human beings found themselves in situations where they had to adapt, they had to win over certain obstacles. Now, this was how humans were shaped. But the thing is, Human beings were shaped by their environment, and humans shaped their environments. So, what you asked me about shaping change and a compelling vision, how does this come into it? Well, it comes into it because human beings have evolutionary wise learned to shape their environments. And human beings have this capacity of tool making. Now, language is one of those tools. So, linguistic development in human beings is also part of tool making because we cannot make tools unless we have concepts and the vision of what we want to do with certain implements. So, another part of human development was having the vision of doing something to achieve a particular goal or objective. So basically, shaping change and a compelling vision come together through this particular human activity and human gift. We may use it as a gift.
Yeah. Would you say that you need to have a compelling vision to shape change?
Certainly, because without a vision, without an end goal, and Aristotle, for example, one of the most famous philosophers, used the term to go to an end goal and call it teleology, not theology, teleology,
Teleology. Okay.
which means moving from this part to a fixed point in the future. And when we look at what happens in human life today, in business, in school, at work, you cannot move and achieve without having a particular goal to go to. Yeah. And okay, we are going to planets. Now it's Mars, before it was the moon, perhaps someday out of the solar system. But human beings always want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is one of the major determinants of having this change shaping move into life.
And I think this particular topic is not just relative to business, but life in general. Would you
Yes,
say?
it is certainly. Was a famous book in the 70s or 80s, I think. It's called Sacred Cows Make the Best Burger.
Sacred.
Yeah.
That's an interesting title.
Yeah. And so basically, there is also the idea of breaking tradition, breaking the sacred of the past to move into the future.
Yeah.
And one of the major critiques of progress by a number of people who want to stick to their comfort zone is, bringing in tradition. Oh, but this is not how we did it in the past. This is, a sacred thing. You cannot change this. It's the law, whatever. So one of the chief determinants of change is breaking from the past, going out of our comfort zone.
That's a tough
And
one.
this is where humans shape change, create change through shaping and breaking from tradition.
This is very interesting because if I talk about myself personally, I have an ongoing battle with this situation because there is a part of me who does not like change deep down.
Who doesn't?
But there's a part of me that is constantly pushing for
Yeah. I mean,
which is really strange.
Yeah. I mean, human beings, we are all part of the past. So we all have an anchor to the past.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have that, we lose our identity.
Very
So it's going to be like a balance.
Yeah.
A balance having two parts to it. One goes up, one goes down. Yeah. Where do we put our weight? Would it be to our past or to our future? Now, if we just become futuristically minded and lose our past completely, then we tend to become completely obtrusive to what makes us who we are. So, in that case, many people who disregard the past disregard history.
Mm.
And uh, in my opinion, that's not the way to go.
No.
The way to go is to embrace what we learn in history, because historic knowledge is the best knowledge to build the future. Not only, though, it is the knowledge of what we did right, the knowledge of what we perhaps did not so right, which gives us the vision of where would we like to go and what don't we want to repeat.
Yeah.
And this, in management and leadership, is very true, but especially it's true in politics, in the geopolitical scheme of things, because that's what we are seeing today.
Yeah.
And actually, today, the European Union is meeting to see how to counter one of this aspect. Some bloc wants to go back to the past, so it's determining the future of countries by wanting to go back to the past, while another bloc, which is wants to continue going forward with democracy and whatever. So this,
My goodness, you really know your stuff.
This is really entrenched into who we are. Who we are. We don't need to learn from books. We don't need to learn. I mean, we do, but if we just go in front of the mirror, we have the best laboratory, which is us.
All right, let's get into a bit deeper into this topic, shaping change. Now, what would you say makes an authentically great mission statement to achieve shaping change?
Well, the vision has to come into it, because the compelling vision states where a person, a team, a country wants to take itself or themselves. The human-centric aspect is very important, because, as we all know, there are a lot of perspectives on this. Let me just, to answer your question, and I think the most simple and effective way is looking at a farmer. Yeah, a farmer will never plant lemons if the farmer wants apples. So the farmer knows what fruit he wants or she wants to have to harvest in the coming year. Yeah, but the mission of the farmer is always who are the people I'm going to sell this fruit. It's not just having the harvest. So you need to have a wider view. So to build a mission, you need to have the vision, you need to have the context of that vision, and you need to know what is going to also be the ambience, the context of that mission. So when we do a mission statement, for example, it's much more than a vision statement. It has to see who is going to be the beneficiary, who's going to be the actual value person or group that will benefit from.
Who is your target audience, right?
Yes, but the idea of value comes into the mission.
Yes.
Because a mission statement or a mission itself without a beneficiary value doesn't give the person or the group or the missionary purpose.
Yeah.
Because purpose, meaning, these are all terms which are loaded, of course, but we can go into them because they're related. So you need a purpose, the teleology, the meaning. This meaning is what value will it give it me to create this to this mission, and what value is going to give to the beneficiary.
Yeah.
So all these aspects are built into a mission.
Very, very interesting. You know, personally, I'm listening to this, and whilst I've never studied it, I've been in leadership roles on and off for the last 25, 30 years. And I can feel all the experiences that have come along in the
Yeah.
journey and facing all these particular, I wouldn't say problems, but challenges and how we deal with them. So I'm really resonating with it right now because again,
You're
it's
connecting the dots.
absolutely. And I knew it without knowing it, so to speak, because obviously through the experiences that I've had, probably it would have been better if I knew all this knowledge before I started. But
Actually, yeah,
it
this is
eventually
very
happens.
interesting because
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, for example, said
Mm.
now, when he did his famous speech to the university students, he said, now I got to know by joining the dots what I should have known or what I come to have known now. And he told the students, don't worry, you have to go through some experiences without knowing why you're going through them. You will make mistakes, but then you will have to join the dots. And when you do that, you will really appreciate your life.
Yeah.
So he was saying this in a famous speech, you can find it,
I've actually seen this speech. It's
where
really
he
good. Yeah.
was actually already, he knew already as a terminal disease. And the positiveness that came out of that speech shows the power of the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think you'd agree we're living in, especially from a business perspective, chaotic times. Yeah. AI is becoming more and more powerful in the workplace. Okay. And of course, people are having issues with burnout
Yeah.
because of the demands and because of the emotional changes that one goes through during everyday work life. How would you balance short-term results with long-term health when you look at this as an entire picture?
Well, this is a very
Balance is always a difficult question,
good
isn't it?
question.
Yeah.
And it's an extremely important one because,
I'm going to be honest with you, I have suffered with this as well in the past.
yes,
Managing this.
yes,
This is one thing. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say.
yes, I can assure you're not the only one.
I'm quite sure.
You're one of the billions in the world because everybody goes through periods of life where the situations of work, the situations of family disrupt the person's move into the future. And sometimes there are issues which are related to childhood, which affect people and how they deal with stress and burnout. And some people are naturally, hormonally calm. They take things as they are. Some people are very worked up. So,
This guy.
yes. But whatever you are, you can always find your rhythm. And the key word here is finding your rhythm. Now, if we look at nature, which is full of rhythms, nature can be actually is always our best teacher.
Yeah.
So we know that it's natural that there are storms. It's nature itself which has cycles. So we must think in cycles. We must think in ways of working with our natural biological rhythms. We must see the time of strong, stressful periods at work. There are industries which are particularly prone to particular timings in their annual operational work. And if people are really interested of how to work best during the year and plan their year, they have to know that certain periods of the year are really heavy. Of course, some work is always very stressful. People who are first responders, firemen, nurses, police. I work with these people in crisis situations, and they have to learn how to control their physiology.
Yeah.
because burnout is related to physiology and neurology. So our nervous system, our body, which are one thing, they're not separate. So one has to learn also how to control and manage your reactions and actions in life. Now, perhaps this is another another webinar or another podcast, or because this has a lot and a lot of. But it's very important to realize this: that we are speaking about shaping change, and we are speaking about burnout. So I bring in the idea of cycles. And we must understand that most of us are not aware of our own cycles, are not aware of our own rhythms. And this is part of the awareness and sensitivity training that today some people, which are very, very perhaps very caught in their leadership situation, need to learn and understand.
I think you said it perfectly before when you made the analogy of looking in the mirror and getting to know who you are and understanding that, and then you can make decisions and actions based on that. Would you say that's correct?
It is more than correct. It is really important that we become self-aware.
Yes.
Not to become self-engrossed and egoistic and narcissistic. That's another problem.
It's not me, okay? All right? It's not you either. It's none of us here, okay?
But some people misrepresent this by saying, I look at myself, I look at my mobile every day, I take selfies and whatever. That's not what we're saying here.
I think there's looking at yourself and then there's really looking at yourself. I think they can be two different things.
Yes, because as some wise person said in the past, you could only see yourself when you look into the mirror. Now, you need also a mentor. You need also people to listen to what people think about you.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you live your life according to somebody else's dictates. Now, I'm not saying this. I'm saying that today we need to have someone that can be a self-referent to us. And in business, in management, in school, there is always today the idea of having a trained mentor, a trained advisor. In the beginning, in an induction, at the end, during the cycle of work, we always need these people because we are all the time, we need to stand back a bit and say, okay, how am I doing? And I use the term feedback. We do not work a lot on feedback. We need feedback all the time. If we want to grow, we need to know where we are to move to another area. So, yes, the mirror is important because it shows, oh, I didn't realize I'm getting wrinkles here. It doesn't mean I'm afraid of wrinkles, but if I have some spots, I may need to go to my dermatologist to see if those are dangerous spots, especially if I work all day in the sun. Some people don't even realize what's happening to them because they're so caught in their act. And this is very important when it comes to shaping change.
Very interesting. I think you'd agree that we currently live in a world dominated by constant transformation. It's everywhere. With that in mind, how can we cultivate ethical leadership? Because I think there's a difference between leadership and then ethical leadership.
Yes. This is another very interesting part of the scheme of leadership because a person in the 70s called Robert Greenleaf, he coined the term servant leadership. And actually, servant leadership isn't becoming a servant. It's understanding the ethical basis of leadership. First of all, the idea of taking full personal responsibility for all your actions and reactions. Now, we touched on the mirror. We touched on how important it is to stand back, look at the mirror, and say, okay, how, what, why? Now, the idea of ethics comes with having a really good vision, which is balanced with why I want to do this or why we want to do this, what are going to be the benefits of this, as I said in the mission.
Yeah.
So the term we bring in when it comes to ethics in leadership is values. Okay, what values are shaping our vision and mission, and what values are we going to transmit?
Very, very, very interesting. I'm having such a good time, and I'll tell you why. I come from a different journey. I have what I call a PhD in life, and especially street life. Okay,
Yes.
and obviously, the way I've learned has been rather through experiences than academically. So when I sit down with people like yourself who have such a wonderful knowledge base, it's just, I find it so exciting. So I'm really enjoying this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And yeah.
Thank you for listening to this.
Oh,
because
I could listen to you for days. I'm telling you. Maybe after a week, I might start saying I need a break, but
I'll tell my wife about this. Yeah.
you'll schedule me in, right? So we've talked about servant leadership, which is a term that I've heard for the very first time today. So thank you very much. How do we build trust within teams when it comes to obviously this individualistic age and the current polarization which tech dominance is creating? I think we can all agree that is what's happening.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious for all to see. How do we build trust in these particular scenarios?
Interesting. Okay, I go back to human beings. Yeah. Human beings are social animals, social beings, social creatures, so that I will touch everybody's. But as I
You're
said,
being very inclusive.
yes, to be politically correct. But as I said, sacred cows make the best burgers. So human beings are also very violent because from our evolutionary history, we learned to work in a group, we learned to live in an extended family, and we learned to build territories and boundaries and fight other groups and invaders. So those people who remember Stanley Kubrick's film,
Which one?
the
Clockwork Orange?
2000 one,
Oh,
the
wow,
Space Odyssey
that
one.
was such a great film.
Yeah, it starts with a scene whereby there is this monolith, and we have two groups of apes which fight each other, shout at each other, aggress each other, but suddenly one of the group of chimps starts to understand the use of a tool, which is a bone, which they break bones, and this starts the film, and it's a fantastic scene. It's, I think, one of the best scenes in movie history. And this was literally what made a lot of people think. So this is where we get it from. This is where we are not only social animals, but sometimes very violent animals or creatures. So it's true. Anthropologically speaking, we are people who work with each other. And this is where the trust factor comes in.
Yes, I'm interested.
Because we grow into our lives by having trust as a necessary part of our growing up. So in the families, we learn to trust. Of course, as we all know, there is a lot going on in the world. Some people are abused in their family by other family members. Some people are abused at school, abused in churches, abused in whatever situation they are. They can be also young people. The wars we can see today at Gaza, whatever, wherever it's happening. People are losing their trust because they are brought out from their group, their families, into very uncertain situations. And trust, what we call trust, is actually meaning, in the sense that we we attribute meaning to a certain group of people whom we trust, and that trust builds the idea that I could perhaps allow this person or this group to work with me, and I can allow myself to open up, to become more vulnerable. Now, when we are bombarded today, especially with a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of stimulation, social media, actual reality, fake news, whatever, our trust barrier is all the time being shaken.
Yes.
Especially young people are being fed a lot with a lot of info which is not true. They are learning because you learn violence. As much as you learn violence, you learn trust.
Yeah.
So the idea is, how can we build trust everywhere in the world today? At the level, the basic level, at home, at school, at work. We must teach people on the idea of learning trust. And trust is a behavior, it is a responsible type of behavior, and it is an opening up. There is also a very important behavioral aspect to it, which is listening and speaking. Many people do not listen, and many people do not speak. If there is violence, then trust is broken. And this can happen at any level. It could happen at work, it could happen at home, it could happen on your phone. I mean, I'm speaking on younger people, of course.
Bullying and
The
so on
older
and
you
so
get,
forth,
the
yeah.
more you become perhaps sensitized
Yeah.
not to trust, okay? Because of getting to understand the reality of life. And why is this? Because trust only happens in a comfort zone, in a bubble where you feel safe. Now, building safety, building boundaries is what organizations can do to build trust. Because people can only trust within known boundaries and known frameworks. Now, if you put people out of that framework without any preparation, the person will lose their bearing and trust will go down.
I have a feeling we could talk for days on that topic alone.
Yes.
But thank you. Very, very interesting. I want to refer to myself a little bit because it was something that I had to deal with mostly earlier on in my career. Handling difficult feedback. Now, in this day and age, I know that a lot of not just leaders, but individuals are having a major problem with this.
Yeah.
So if you had to give some advice on how to handle these type of situations, what would it be?
Okay. First of all, to understand that really in life there are no mistakes. Now, this may sound a bit controversial. Our educational system, especially the traditional one, was based on rewarding good points and actually putting a person or a student in the idea that you have made mistakes, so you're going to be punished for them. So we learned from a young age to actually try and put mistakes under the carpet, as they say. But that is really something which, in the wisdom of things, shouldn't be done. Mistakes are what gives us the idea of bearings, boundaries, where we have strayed away from certain standards.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that we must be polarized or unpolarized by standards, or this is the only way you can be. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you are doing something, there is always the best way of doing it or the better way of doing it. Now, how do we do that? We do that because we can actually say, okay, if I do this, and when I did this, I got this reward or I got this punishment. Now that's feedback. So the idea of cybernetics I already mentioned is cybernetics is the study of moving towards a goal. Now, there was this scientist Wiener who studied cybernetics and created the term cybernetics, which stated that this missile and the heat, like cybernetics, we have them at home. If you go to your boiler at home, which heats up your water, there is what we know as a thermostat.
Yeah.
Okay, what does a thermostat do? It's in science we call it a servo mechanism. So it's a mechanism which tells you how far or how varied you are from the stated standard. So we want your hot water to be at 80 centigrade, and it's just 60, so it heats up. When it comes to 80, you know that your boiler just stops heating and you have it as a constant 80-degree water. Now, this mechanism is also part of our brain. We have part of our neurology is a servo mechanism, which allows us to move towards goals. And this is very important because we cannot move towards any goal unless we have feedback.
Of course.
So feedback is the way our servo mechanism moves us in a zigzag way, like a heat-guided missile. It doesn't go straight.
Yeah.
It just tries, but always wavers, but goes back to the goal.
Mm-hmm.
It is feedback, which is the data which is being fed, whether it's a heat-sensitive aspect or whether it's another aspect. It's always a zigzag movement. And when you look at people, how they move towards their goals, it's never a straight line, never. It's always a zigzag. Why? Because it is the feedback. A bit of error here, a bit of success there, so you are actually moving towards your goal. And this is the beauty of feedback. And this is why it's always, I use this term, a sin not to take care of feedback and to embrace feedback. Now, in school, we have been taught, well, you're going to get punished for mistakes. Yes, part of the educational process I don't like.
Yeah.
If we are trained to say, okay, you made a mistake, it can be costly.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if you do your mistake once, twice, thrice, that means you're not taking care of your feedback.
Yes.
And that should be punished,
Yeah.
not the mistake. And this is where I think we must make a breakthrough with a lot of people to make them understand that you're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are okay,
Yes.
as long as you're going to use those mistakes to learn and move towards your goal.
Exactly right. I mean, I think you go on the subject of making mistakes, which is something I used to really not like in my early years. But I can say the very reason that I got to where I am today is purely based on mistakes and how I learned from them,
Yeah.
especially from a business point of view. So that is so important. If I had any advice for any young people maybe listening, or any leaders who are listening, any career people, simply take it on board. Every bit of feedback is useful in one way or another. So
Yeah.
be open to it. Don't take it personally. In most scenarios, it will not be personal.
Yeah.
So that would be definitely
It's
my
true.
advice.
It's true.
And
It's true. It's true. And this is perhaps a bit of the down aspect of AI.
mhm,
Many young people are using AI,
mhm,
basic AI. I'm saying it basic AI,
yeah.
just to say, okay, I'm going to get to my goal,
Mhm.
do this essay on AI, but not learning
Yes.
the zigzagging necessary to
Yeah.
get them to understand.
Such a wonderful analogy. I think I want to end off with one more important question regarding leadership. Obviously, as we've mentioned many times today, it's a high-speed world we live in. So how do we develop learning cultures in a life that is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour?
Okay, it's a fantastic question, and it deserves a very deep answer. Well, I am not sure I can give you that in a very short time, but let me just
Yeah.
say this.
Your general thoughts will just be fine for
Yes,
now, and we
but
can definitely go.
yes, we can explore this
Yes.
perhaps someday later on, but it's very important because how do we develop a culture of learning? Now, there was a particular management scientist, Peter Senge, who has written a book which is a classic called The Fifth Discipline. Now, the idea of the learning organization came up through this particular book. Now, many people say, wow, this is maybe a secret here, the learning organization. And the learning organization has actually created a lot of positives, but because of speed and today's corporate ways of working, many people say, many good people say, you cannot build a culture of learning the way Peter Senge wanted it because it takes time, it takes a lot of investment. Yes, it does. And I think this is a problem that we are having today, that we are cutting off corners.
Mhm.
Now, how do you build a culture? A culture isn't built in a day, like Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. To build a culture is to build a civilization. Now, many known cases where companies built cultures, it took time to build a culture.
Of course, yeah.
If you take, for example, the idea of the Toyota management system, they have a way of doing things. One of the major undercurrents of the Toyota management system is what is known as the way of building slow and continuous improvement. You know, there are many Japanese terms. I won't go into them here because we don't have the time, but we can definitely discuss this.
I think that statement in itself, what you just said, is
So there is the idea of, there's the idea of the slow but important understanding of what went wrong, taking the feedback, building on it. This is the never-ending improvement type of ways of working in management. But then there are the radical type of changes wanted in management, like, okay, we want to discard the past, like as I said, taking the idea that sacred cows make the best burgers. And this was the title of this book, where they, okay, let's not go back to tradition. Let's go to new innovative ways of doing things. I'll cut, I'll restructure, I'll completely change this, throw it away, build a new idea. Yeah, that's good sometimes. And innovative things happen when you say, okay, let us do an experiment. Let us literally go to something completely new. That's good. But if you do that, people will lose trust,
yeah.
will lose momentum. So people will need to build up slowly. So you must balance. The idea of having that balance is very important to build a culture because people are people. You need to
Yeah.
build them up slowly but surely.
Absolutely fantastic. I think we're running out of tape, as they might have said 60 or 70 years ago, but my mind is blown. We will definitely have more conversations in the future because I'm
I'll be happy to do
absolutely
that.
enthralled.
Thank you so much for bringing me
On
on.
it's a pleasure, and we of course are going to be collaborating together. So I'm looking
That's
forward
great.
to that as well. Thank you so much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. Professor David Attard,
Thank you.
and
It's a pleasure.
we'll see you soon.